Hello, and welcome to this Pali Studies tutorial. This is the 10th video in the Learn Pali series. Now, there's a general rule in Pali, and that is, nouns referring to the same thing are in the same case and number. And we saw that in the last video, which covered adjectives. Adjectives are one type of noun attribute, and in this video we're going to look at the other types of noun attributes. So, what is a noun attribute? Well, it's any characteristic or quality which is added to a substantive noun. They are ways of adding more information about people, places and things. And as we've seen, adjectives, like happy and sad, red and blue, angry and calm, are one way of doing this. So for instance, in English, we might say, the wise recluse, where the word wise is an adjective which tells us more about the recluse. And in Pali we would say this, pandito samano, where pandito, meaning wise, is in the same case and number as samano, the recluse. We've also seen another way to add an attribute to a noun. For instance, we can say, the recluse is wise. This is a type of equational sentence, and the term wise is sometimes referred to as the complement, because it completes the linking verb is. In Pali, we'd say this, samano pandito hoti, and again samano and pandito are both in the same nominative singular case, because they refer to the same thing. Now you might get the impression that the endings of the noun and the attribute are always the same, and this is true if both terms belong to the same declension group. So for instance, if we said the wise monk, pandito bhikkhu, notice that both words have different endings while they are both in nominative singular. Now, there's one other way that an attribute can be added to a noun, and that is through apposition. For instance, we could refer to Sariputta, the wise one, and this type of construction is referred to as an apposition. An apposition is when two terms are placed side by side and refer to the same thing, and here we can see that Sariputta and the wise one both refer to the same person. In English, we'd often use commas to separate out these types of phrases. For instance, we might say, John, our friend, came to visit, or I visited Canada, a beautiful country. Now again in Pali, the terms of the apposition are both placed in the nominative case, because they both refer to the same thing. So we've seen that there are three ways we can add attributes to a substantive noun, and that is as an adjective, a complement, or in apposition. Now you may ask yourself, how do we know the difference between these three types of constructions? And the simple answer is, it really depends on the context of the sentence. As a general rule, adjectives come before the substantive noun they qualify, while appositions and attributes come after their noun. But of course this isn't always the case. And often numbers and titles like king are placed in apposition in Pali, whereas in English they would be adjectives. Anyway, let's now look at an example. Sariputta mahapano dhammanang diseti bhikkhunang. Now we can see here the verb is diseti, to teach, and it's in third person singular. And we know in Pali the verb matches its subject in both person and number, and also the subject will most likely be in nominative case. And here we can see that Sariputta mahapano is the subject. Maripano, meaning very wise, matches Sariputta in case, number and gender, and so is an attribute of the name Sariputta. Now the object of the verb, and in this case what is being taught, is the term in accusative case, which is dhammanang. So we could translate this, the wise Sariputta teaches the Dharma, if we were to take mahapanya as an adjective. Or we could say, Sariputta, the wise, teaches the Dharma, taking mahapanyo as an attribute in apposition. And we could even say Sariputta, who is very wise, teaches the Dharma, taking mahapanyo as a linking attribute. Now, the last term in our sentence, bhikkhunang, is in dative case, and here it's acting as an indirect object, that is, the person or thing who receives the direct object, which in this case is the teaching of the Dharma. So finally we can translate this whole sentence as Sariputta the wise teaches the Dharma to the monks. Now you may have noticed that apposition is very similar to the equational sentence. So when we say Sariputta the wise one, there's an implied is, Sariputta, who is the wise one. And if we take our other examples, John, our friend, what we mean is John, who is our friend, and Canada, a beautiful country, we mean Canada, which is a beautiful country. So we can see with apposition there's an implied is, linking the noun and its attribute. Now, in equational sentences in Pali, the is also often just implied, and doesn't actually appear as a word in the sentence. So if in Pali we find two nouns in nominative case, there may be an implied is linking them together. So for instance, in this Pali sentence, we have 6 substantive nouns, and no verbs at all. Now each of the nouns are in nominative singular, and we can see that they form pairs. And from this we can infer that they're actually equational phrases, the two nouns being linked by an implied is. So we can translate this as action is the field, awareness is the seed, and thirst is the sap. This type of construction is sometimes referred to as a nominal sentence, nominal meaning that it's composed of nouns and that there are no verbs. Now this only happens in Pali when the verb is a form of to be, and in the present tense that is, and also only when nouns are in nominative case. Okay, so what have we learnt in this tutorial? Well, there are different ways we can add attributes to a noun, and that is with an adjective, a complement, or an attribute in apposition. And we've seen that like apposition, nouns in the nominative case are sometimes connected by an implied linking verb. And that, my friends, is what we mean when we say that nouns referring to the same thing will be in the same case and number. For more information, check out my other videos on this channel, or go to my blog, which is palistudies.blogspot.com.